six-pack Lapadat. We got the champ. We got the champ, Brittany Schlater. And guess what? I was just talking to somebody the other day, and he was reminding me how at the very last day, you win a world title. And then as soon as he saw me, my first words out of my mouth was, "We got one. We got one." Came down to the last day, but Canada got one.
You finally got one.
We finally it right down to the very last one, but here we are. It happened. But this is your second world title. But this, so first off, how different is this one from 2021 when you won?
This one feels a lot different for sure. It actually feels like I accomplished something, whereas in 2021 it was kind of discounted because it wasn't a fair playing field and not everybody was there, and whatever excuse you could come up with. But this time we all showed up, we were all there, we all fought the fight, and what happened happened. So it definitely felt more satisfying. So definitely happy with that.
In 2021, so this was for anyone like listen, some people like new to the sport, new people coming in all the time, but it was the COVID year, it was the USAPL split. And so essentially it was Bonica who wasn't there, right? And you win, and so you felt like, okay, look it. Bonica wasn't there, you won, it was the world championships, you beat everybody who showed up. Bonica, obviously, it wasn't because she didn't want to show up, but this time, this was probably the most stacked 84 class we've ever seen in history. I mean,
Yeah, it
considering
was a wild year.
it's got to be. If we look at the numbers here, you did 693.5 and Sunita did 688.5, both of them world records. I mean, it's got to be the most stacked possible class in history for the 84 plus. I've been commentating since 2016. I've never in my life seen this is top five, not just 84 plus, like by far the best 84 plus showdown. Previously, it was a one woman show, but now this was like one of the best sessions I've ever commentated in, period. I mean, this was wild. It had everything. It had a changing of momentum, upsets, controversy, the whole nine. The underdog who you throw 30 kilos onto your total and like how you like me now moment. It was crazy. It had everything, and it was live on Eurosport. They couldn't have picked a better one to have live on Eurosport.
Honestly, I think I had to go back and watch it because obviously when you're in the heat in the game play, like game day, you're not focused on what everybody else is doing and what's going on around you. Like I was totally clueless. So I went back and watched it on my flight home because I was like, I missed something, and I missed a lot of my friends doing some really incredible stuff. So definitely went back and watched that one.
It was, yeah. And if there was any kind of talk after 2021, there could be no talk after this one. I mean, you have the biggest 84 kilo plus record we've ever seen at the IPF World Championships. Nobody's ever done more. The only person who's done second more was Sonita, who's right behind you. And she came in second. I mean, it was coming into this. So first off, coming into this one, what were your expectations?
I tried to let go of all expectations because I get really anxious when I compete and I have like really, really bad performance anxiety. So I tried to let go of expectations and just know I was in really good hands because my coaching staff was next level for the day. I had Garrett Bentley, who's been with me a million times. My personal coach, Bryce Krawcheck, was there. Ryan Stinn, who has tons of years in the game, and Danny Clovelter in Canada as well. Like I knew I was in really good hands for the day. So I tried to let go of any of my expectations and just trust their expertise.
Yeah. And did you feel like coming into this, obviously Bonica had been in, the queen of the 84 pluses for super long time. I mean, she's won in equipment, out of equipment, world games, etc. And Sunita coming with like Joey Flex as her coach and coming out of Europe, there was a lot of hype on Sunita. Did you think people were overlooking you based off of this? Where did you see yourself in the mix with those two?
I didn't see myself in the mix with them. I kind of saw myself as like a separate entity because again, like I can't impact what they do. And how their day's outcomes. Obviously, there was a lot of talk going around about Benika and Sunita and the huge battle between them. And I was excited for it. I didn't really know that I would be in the mix until I got my game day plan, which was kind of shocking. But I think people did overlook me, but that was somewhat intentional. I wasn't posting things on Instagram. I stayed pretty quiet, kept my head low, and just worked as hard as I could.
You put on 30 kilos from Canadians, but I was talking to Sunita on the weekend. I was in France doing the silent worker meet, and Sunita was there, and she said she saw your Canadian Nationals performance, and in her mind's eye, she thought you would be around 690 range, and she foresaw this coming. And I'm like, really? What did you like? Because 30 kilos is huge. Like people die for 30 kilos in their total. I'm like, 30-kilo advancement. And she's like, I came ready expecting I might need to do like 700 kilos to win this, which I mean, maybe playing it super duper safe. Like, oh my gosh, I need like something crazy spectacular. It's difficult to put on your best performance sometimes at Worlds. Like sometimes people's totals go down, not up. And yours going up 30 kilos is not the norm. To go up 30 kilos a world, usually people come down a stitch because it's so difficult with travel, time zone change, and then the calls. Like the calls are super stiff. But Sunita saw you coming, and she's like, "No, I knew this was going to be a problem." How good? Like, how did you put on 30 kilos, or do you think you put on 30 kilos? Do you think Canadian Nationals? Because Sunita thought you had more in the tank at Canadian Nationals. Was Canadian Nationals actually pulling back and purposely not loading up? Were you by Canadian Nationals?
So I wouldn't say that I pulled back at Canadian Nationals. It wasn't intentional. I felt like I gave it everything I had on the day, but then I go back and watch it, and all of my third attempts looked like warm-ups, which I got a lot of shit for from several of my pals, and they were like, let's see what you do when you don't just hit warm-ups. A big one was Ryan Stin, who got to be there at Worlds with me. So it was kind of cool to see that come full circle. Because, yeah, my lifts at Nationals were not RP 10 by any means. But a lot of it had to do with my confidence and building that up and trusting myself. So I did a lot of mental work as well going into Worlds.
Hmm. Is it like going into the World Championships when you were prepping? Were you hitting these massive lifts and kind of knew you would be around in the 690s like this?
No, so I don't hit huge lifts in training, which I've talked to Bryce, my coach, about many times. I don't train the way a lot of athletes train, and it's very weird, and they don't understand how I show up on game day and hit these numbers. And I don't know how they hit these numbers in training because it just seems so foreign to me. But the biggest squat I hit was 260 in training. So having 270 on my back was already 10 kilos more than I'd ever touched. And I mean, I hit 260 at RP7. So I mean, it all translates, but it seemed absurd to me. Like I opened up my meet card when Bryce sent it to me and I saw 281 and I just closed the meet card. I was like, we're not going to look at this right now because that's too big of a number to sit with.
Okay. So this was crazy. So you're talking about Bryce Krawczyk. Just,
yeah.
just for everyone who's listening. And okay, so you hit 260, 21 kilos more. How does he know that you could do 281? How does he even know? That's so much more than you hit.
So Bryce and I have been working together for a year, and I think it has taken this full year for us to figure each other out because I'm not that person. Like I know Sunita hits these beautiful lifts outside of the competitions and in the gym and just looks so on point, and it translates to the competition for her. But I cannot hit those numbers in training. I don't even try. It's not like I'm trying and failing them in training. It's just not something that ever even crosses the radar. Like we didn't go above RP7 for squat or deadlift and RP8 for bench. So it definitely took several meets for Bryce and I to figure each other out. And he told me even going into this meet that he thought we were underselling my squat a little bit. And I was like, all right, buddy, like, let's take a step back. Like that's already 21 kilos more than I've ever touched. Like, let's play it safe. And he was on the page. Obviously, like that's what he gave me for my meat card. That was the plan, and it came to fruition. So
You're like, let's take a step. Let's settle down. Your faith in me is amazing, but this is crazy. But he knew
yeah,
though, he must have saw something. It's so crazy. You've never touched anything close to that, but yet his faith in like, no, this is there now.
yeah, definitely. He has a lot of faith in me, and he's helped me pursue the work that it takes to have faith in myself, because that was a big limiting factor for me for a really long time, is not believing in myself and not trusting that I could handle these weights when I'm fully capable of it, obviously.
And so when you're coming into this, I guess I understand now where you might be like, I'm not sure. We got a plan, but I have no idea if this is realistic or this is like, are you mentally prepping yourself for, I guess you're just looking at it like, I'm going to do the best I can and wherever the chips fall.
Yeah, I mean, you never know what's going to be there on game day. Like you said, oftentimes you show up at Worlds and you total less. And if that's what kind of day you're dealt, that's the kind of day you're dealt, and you deal with it and you move forward. And sometimes you show up and things are on. And that's why I relied so much on my coaching staff to know me and know how I am and make the right calls, which they did across the board. And I have so much faith in them. And that really helped give me some peace of mind. I knew they weren't going to load 281 if it was going to be some weight that just crumpled me. So I just had faith and carried through with it.
When you showed up in Malta, now you've been to world championships before, you're a veteran of the game now. Did it feel this worlds was freaking huge? I mean, it's the biggest we've ever seen. Again, live on Eurosport. Did you know ahead of time you would be live on Eurosport with millions of people watching?
I did and I didn't. I think when I got to Malta, it kind of set in and everybody's talking about Eurosport, and you see the whole Eurosport team walking around the hotel and the venue, and it kind of clicked in like, oh, this is kind of a big deal.
Like, if you get performance anxiety, did you at all at any point beforehand think like they chose my session? Like they chose your session. So all the sessions they'll do video highlights where kind of like the white lights package. I was talking to Sunidia's boyfriend at the silent worker as well when they were both there, and he was telling me
Beyonce.
fiance. There we go. Thank you. I was wondering. Hold on, they might be married for all I know, but oh no, you're right. They got engaged at the
They got
banquet.
engaged at Worlds. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. That's right. That's right. So, and he was telling me, I think they did like it the way he's describing the white lights highlight packages of all the other sessions. It was like the Eurosport abbreviated highlights for all the other sessions. It was like the white lights episodes where they like super condense it all killer, no filler kind of, there's no lull in action. It's real quick, bang, bang, bang. So they'll take a 3-hour session and condense it into like 45 minutes or less, throw in commercials, etc. But and that's great. But they chose 2 sessions for live all the way through 3 hours long, just like when you sit down and watch a baseball game. Aired live in live sports, even though the highlight packages visually look amazing. Like if it's anything like white lights, and that's what's described to me as closest I can relate to, it'll look great. But there's nothing quite like live sports. When it comes to sports, people usually want to digest it live, and they chose your session, and their viewership is millions of people. So I remember talking to like the IPF media boys, and we were like, those live sessions, you want it to be as good a fight as possible. You want it to be as good as you're just kind of like throwing whatever at the wall, noodles at the wall, being like, I hope this ends up being a scrap. I hope it ends up being everything we want. And my God, Brittany, this session was freaking fireworks. I'm glad you went back and watched it because
Yeah.
from the squat battle, you guys bouncing around. For anyone listening, if you didn't see the session, you could watch it now. It's on the YouTube at the Olympic and I think IPF as well. But all 3 of you guys breaking the world record. And let me take a look here. I know you weren't paying attention at the time, but when I see, so you broke the world record in the third round of squats. So Nita broke it again with 285.5. You hit 281.5. And Bonica actually broke it in the second round of squats with 280.5 and then 289. So that's 4 world records broken just in the squat event, back and forth like this. Were you, after the squat event happened, did you look at the scoreboard and be like, holy smokes, we just volleyed around this world record? That was one of the greatest squat battles I'd seen in any weight class.
I didn't look at the scoreboard the entire day. I prefer to be totally clueless, but I knew like all I like to know when I'm at a competition is how much we're going up by. So I asked my coaches, I'm like, how big of a jump did we take? And they were like, oh, 11 kilos. I was like, well, that's not suspicious. So I kind of knew I was going for a record. Went out, took it, and then obviously Sunita and Bonica followed. So I knew that they were taking chips on that record, or Bonica launched that record until the end. But yeah, I knew we were bouncing around the record, and I thought it was super cool to be a part of that because, like you so kindly mentioned on the live stream, that's not something that I ever would have been in the discussion of for before.
No, this was, I mean, this was crazy. Look at 4 of you ladies squatted over 600 pounds in that squat session.
Yeah.
We're not used to seeing this. In your previous, what was your previous squat PR? Was it the 260? It was.
Yeah.
21 kilos squat. See, people put on 21 kilos on their total on an amazing day, not 21 kilos on their squat. It's crazy. Your performance, like, if any, it was, I'm wondering just how shocking this was to some of these other ladies that you put on 21 kilos on your squat. What do you attribute such crazy growth on your squat from?
Honestly, I think I've had a lot of the strength. My body weights up a bit, which obviously helps. But I've had the strength, I think, for a really long time, but trusting myself, especially in training. I train alone in my basement, so I don't have spotters. I don't have any support. Like, it's just me versus me and the bar. And if you move it, you move it. And if you don't, you're bailing on Maliko or Axe. So not exactly ideal. So I think a lot of it was trusting myself and knowing I could move the weights. Like I said, we never went above RP 7, 8. So it's not like I thought I was going to fail in each week. You just keep adding a bit more to that RPE. And eventually I was back up to 260, taking it for RP 7 in my basement alone. So I was like, if I can do that, and like, if you watch my third squat, when I walk out, I'm talking to myself and I'm just like, you know what? Like, the worst thing that happens is you fail, and you have a whole team of experienced spotters here that are going to catch you. So might as well take it for a ride.
When you came into this, there was like we were saying before, there was obviously a lot of hype on Sunita. Bonica is who she is in terms of like her resume. And I remember, I forget what I said to you before we started, but I rubbed you the wrong way and apologized like crazy afterwards. But what was it? Did you feel slighted, not just by me, but in general, to be overlooked? Or like, I obviously slighted you, rubbed you the wrong way, maybe to help light a fire in you, but
I think it helps everybody overlooking me because, like, I think what you were intending to say before we competed is that there wasn't pressure on me because this Bonica Sunita battle was so hyped up, and I was kind of left out of that mix. So there wasn't all this pressure on me, but it kind of helps, yeah, because I'm like, people are counting me out, like, you know, listening to all the preview shows and being like, yeah, Brittany, solid third, solid third, solid third. And I'm like, cool, solid third. But if I can, you know, do what my coaches think I'm capable of doing, that third might become something else. So again, just kind of laid low and tried to make my list.
And you showed like tenacity. Like, do you think like mentally you were different in terms of just like everything, your growth mentally as an athlete, having been around, you know, year after year, gone through it all. Like, you've gone through it all in your lifting career. Everything you faced to this one, where previously Bonica wasn't there, now she's here. And there will be no excuses this time. Sunita, good. Sunita's here, and there's tons of hype on her. Good. Now we're all here, and they're carrying a large portion of this hype, which can backfire as well. It can wear on you, can make you do things, pull you out of pocket, make you make moves that maybe you ought not to have done. And Do you think your mental approach to this one was different? Like, how would you gauge? Because obviously, physically, you're right. Your body weight actually didn't go up that much. Like, we're talking 3 or 4 kilos from nationals, but 21 kilos on your
Mm.
squat is incredible. Like, your strength gains have been incredible. Sky's the limit for you. But mentally, do you think is this the most on point you've been mentally? Did you do anything different on purpose mentally to get yourself to this point? Or is it just like wisdom over time?
So I think there are a couple of things that contributed to this world. So yes, I've been working with my therapist like in and out week after week on my mental game for powerlifting because it is such a huge portion of my life. So it'll be like one week we're talking about life stuff, other week we're talking about powerlifting. And the closer we get to meets, the more time we're talking about, how do I handle this anxiety? Because I do get really bad performance anxiety that used to affect my squat specifically. Because I would literally lose feeling of my legs and I didn't know how to trust them when that would happen. But this was the first competition that I wasn't nervous for, which is weird because of all the competitions you could be nervous for. I feel like this is the one that you probably ought to be nervous for.
Mm.
But I think another part of not being nervous this world is I was so sick. I didn't know I was going to be able to compete. So I was so focused on just like keeping myself well enough to compete that I didn't have time to worry about what was going on or what I was accomplishing, what other people were doing. It was like, how am I going to get through this?
How did you get like really sick? How close to the meet did you get sick?
So I was sick 4 or 5 days before the meet. And I was sick all the way through the meet, went to the hospital when I got back to Canada. It turns out I had E. coli poisoning the whole time. So I was literally like in the warm up room, popping Imodium, trying to like get
Oh
my
my
body to
God.
just chill for a minute. I was like in the shower, like sweating, shaking, like hot sweats, cold sweats, like 4:30 in the morning, the day I'm supposed to be competing. And I like called one of my friends over to my room. I was like, I'm not going to be able to do this. And so she's like, you know what? We just need to take a step back and like not freak out until you get under the bar and start warming up, see how you're feeling. So I did that, and I mean, I'm glad I did because obviously it paid off. But yeah, I went in having no idea how I was going to survive that. Especially, this is where you're live on Eurosport. I was like, is this really going to happen? Am I going to be that person on Eurosport?
Not only right, Brittany, if you didn't compete, oh my God, what you would have missed. Now you know,
Yeah.
like, but and the thing is too, it wasn't just nerves because even after you already won and you got back to Canada, you still felt that way and had to go to the hospital.
Yeah,
Like it
I was
followed
sick.
you.
I was like real sick for 11 days. It's finally passed now, and then I just got like the post-meet chest cold. So getting over that now. So it's been 2 weeks straight of just being sick with something. So very fortunate that it's passing now. So get back to training this week.
And you were saying, I think last time you were on the podcast, when you won last time, you were talking about like, yeah, some anxiety attacks will just pop up out of nowhere. And it's happened literally in the warm-up room previous because you can't, that's how anxiety attacks work. And you said, didn't you it last world's fail in the warm-up room badly? Something happened like that. And you gave
Yeah,
Team
I failed
Canada
my third warm up at 180 kilos because my body just went into like a full panic attack.
only it's weird because your reaction to the panic attack was like, we're all right. Relax, guys, we're gonna do this.
Yeah.
It's like being a veteran of panic attacks or something. It's like you
Yeah.
could bounce back from them or something, because you've had them
Been
before.
around that track a few times. I know you have two choices. You can either, I mean, you don't always have a choice. I'm not saying that you can just like check your mind and decide you're out of it, but once it's through, you either carry on or sit with it. And I didn't have a choice that day.
But at this world, you felt a whole lot more calm, a whole lot more focused, and a whole lot
Yeah.
more collected.
Yeah,
Like I got
it
that
was
sense.
like night and day. I wasn't nervous at all. I tried to like go through the steps because I always like write myself a letter before competing, and I do all sorts of like mental exercises to like if you don't win, like it's not the end of the world because I've been in that position where I've had that pressure on myself, where I felt like it was the end of the world if I didn't win. So I went through all those motions, but I didn't end up needing it because I was so calm on the day. And it's, I don't know, like we started warming up and normally like some nerves would kick in. Nothing really kicked in. I went out and took my opener. Obviously, I'm always nervous, especially with the judging this year. Like that was terrifying to me. But I was talking to Reyes and she's like, I have some advice for you. And I was like, cool. She's going to give me like some down to earth information. She's like, yeah, just don't let the judges question you. Get all white lights and they can't overturn your death. And I was like, wow, that was really helpful. But I did. I got 27 white lights. So it was like literally the picture perfect day and no nerves kicked in ever. So not sure.
Like the freaking stars aligned, everything just came together for you exactly the perfect moment, including Eurosport selecting that session. Everything was perfect.
Yeah.
The people that were there, the hype that was around it, people were excited for this battle too, because we knew this was going to be, we knew this wasn't going to be the usual that you would see in 84 plus. This wasn't going to just be the Bonica show. Even if she won, she was going to be pressed like we'd never seen her pressed before. So there was something there, and that's why Eurosport also had it. So when you're watching it, during it, you didn't realize. Actually, before we talk about when you're watching it, when you were in the room, what was the vibe of the room like? When you're in the warm-up room before, when squats are on the way, and it's like the best squat battle it's up there, top 5 of all time.
You know, it was fun. We are all really supportive of each other, which I think is super cool. Like the whole meet in between every single attempt, Samita and I are cheering each other on, giving each other hugs, high fives, like rooting for each other because we are in each other's corner. And I think it's so cool to not just be a competitor, but to be able to be friends with people. So it was just a lot of fun. Like everything's flying by, you're in these huge battles, but you're still rooting for each other. So I think that was really cool. And it's awesome to be a part of that.
This is you and Sonita?
Yeah, and a lot of the other girls as well. Like they weren't obviously like as involved with the squat battle. I mean, Jewel was like right on our tails, and we had no idea. Like that was incredible. But yeah, we're all just like cheering each other on. Like we want each
Yeah.
other to succeed.
Sunita says good things about you when I seen her in France. She was she's a big supporter of you, by the way. Yeah. When bench
Yeah.
press rolled around, when you seen the bench press, and I'm gonna pull this up. So for you ended up breaking the world record. It ended up getting Bonica with the biggest world record of 289 and taking gold. Sunita taking the silver medal and you taking the bronze, but also breaking the world record. And in the bench press, you did 155 kilos, good enough for bronze. And of the three, you, Bonica, and Sonita, you had the biggest bench press. Now, your previous personal best in nationals, you did 151.5. Is this around what you would expect? And this is a jump that is not quite as drastic as your squat jump. That's bench gains don't come nearly as big. But is that kind of what you were expecting?
So when I opened my meet card from Bryce, of course, I'm looking at all these huge numbers, awesome progress, projected like 31 kilo total PR. And I was like, man, I really think I was like 157.5. But I was like, how selfish can you be? Like hit the 155, do it damn well and earn it for next time. So I was hoping I could scrape out 157.5, but you know, at that point we weren't in it to risk it. So I did whatever my coaches told me to. And yeah, 155 is pretty much what I expected, but not what I had hoped.
Oh, so this one was a little bit undercut. Well, I mean, your squat was phenomenal and you're building that subtotal. So you just got to kind of hold serve, so to speak, and not risk it like Bryce was saying. But at least so now you're starting to play a little more of a conservative game come the bench press.
Yeah, and I mean, I didn't know how 155 would move. Again, it's not something I had ever touched in training. No clue, and it ended up like I think I probably did have another 2.5 in the tank, and that's fine. Like Worlds isn't always about hitting your PR or maxing out. It's about playing the game, and that's what we were there to do.
Now going into the deadlifts, this is where things get a little bit spicy. So Matt Gary was talking about how in the recap show, did you listen to the recap show, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. So Matt Gary was talking about how the pressure had been applied by this point to Team USA and Bonica. And Bonica's biggest deadlift coming into this is 252.5, and they opened up a 240, which is pretty close considering you got 3 attempts. You're going to go from conceivably around 240, 5 kilos, 5 kilos. I mean, those aren't big jumps. Those are like bench press jumps. Those aren't deadlift jumps. That is very close to like flying close to the sun, so to speak. But this speaks to the pressure that is being put on her by you and Sonita, where they felt as though they needed to gain kilos. However, shouldn't really be gaining kilos on your opener. You got to be gaining those kilos in second and third attempts. They don't make a lot of mistakes, Team USA, but they did what they did. Were you aware when this was happening that she was missing those lifts? Did you get a vibe, even if not explicitly, from maybe her reaction coming off the platform?
I had absolutely no idea that she had missed a single deadlift, period, until like 45 minutes after the competition was over. I had no idea.
Really?
Yeah.
Whoa, you had
Like,
no
I like
idea.
to be clueless, and they left me clueless. Like, I had no idea.
In we're talking even in terms of like reading body language that maybe something might be off. You couldn't tell like, or I guess you wouldn't tell someone's missing, or if they just weren't like, could you read a vibe in the room back there?
So when we were deadlifting, Danica didn't come back into the wrapping room with us. She stayed kind of out where you would walk out in the tunnel the whole time. So it's not like I was seeing her during these attempts. So no, I didn't read body language. And again, when I'm lifting, I'm very internally focused, and like I'll cheer other lifters on when I see them passing, but very focused on myself and what I need to do. So
In for perspective, you ended off with a deadlift of 257.5. That's more than Bonica's done. And you opened up a 235. Just for like people who that's what Matt Gary was kind of alluding to in the recap show is if you're going to end off in the 250s, I would have suggested something around 230, 235, somewhere in the 230s to give yourself that room to grow. And you ended off heavier than she'd ever ended off. And you yourself opened up lighter to give yourself that. Even if you had to pull big at the end, you're not doing 3 lifts at your top end. And the turnaround, how did you feel about the turnaround? Was it too fast? Was it just on the money for you? How did you think about the pacing?
it was quick and dirty, but I really do prefer it that way. Like, I would rather be quick, get it done with, especially when I'm in like these high anxiety, adrenaline rush positions. I would rather get through my lifts because I find myself in training, like I'm sitting there having to time my rest because I want to bang out the sets, but here you don't have a choice. You're banging it out whether you're ready or not. So that's what I prefer, but I know it's not ideal and it's not what a lot of people do prefer. But yeah, it worked well with me.
How were you feeling during deadlifts? Did you have any indication whatsoever about the total you're building by the time your second and third deadlift rolled around?
I didn't let myself think about it. Like, now I look back and I'm like, how stupid can you be? But I didn't think about it, so I didn't know where I was in, like, with total or anything. Like, I had no idea, but I knew I had had a good squat, I had had a good bench, and right after bench, I started feeling real tired, and I was like, oh man, like I'm burning out fast. And they were like, well, you just gotta hold on, like a couple more lifts, just hold on with us. And so I was like, all right, here we go. Slammed back some caffeine because I wasn't drinking caffeine because of the E. coli poisoning. I didn't want to make it worse. So I did have
Hmm.
some caffeine for deadlift, and I think it helped pull through.
In terms of like the poll, some people want to be told like this is for bronze or silver or gold or this is for, and that gets them all rallied up. It like especially if you start feeling tired. But for you, even during deadlifts, you must have knew like you knew what you ended up benching, right?
Yeah.
Like you knew what your subtotal was. And did you know what the number on the bar for your deadlift?
I mean, you see it when you walk out. You just don't think about it. My main goal was just to hold on to the bar because I knew my first lift I've done before, my second lift I've done before, my third lift was going to be a PR. But my biggest thing, my limiting factor with my deadlift is my grip. So I've failed grip so many times in competition on lifts that are easy for me until I get to lock out and my hand fails. So my biggest focus was just hold on to the damn bar. It doesn't matter what the weight is, just hold it.
Because yeah, your last deadlift was solidifying that 693.5, which is an absolute monster total. And if you didn't know what the weight was, you probably had a feeling this is going to be it's going to be big. This is going to be like, did you? So I guess you had no inclination whatsoever that you were clinching the world title, or at least the very least setting the bar high like that, like you were right up in the mix. You walked off that platform. Did they tell you when you walked off the platform you're currently in first?
No, they didn't tell me that, and they didn't tell me I'd won until everything was over. I had no idea. I was actually texting one of my friends during the competition because he sent me a video because I always, in my training, I watch back my video to see what I need to change or what worked well for my lift. So he sends me my lift, I watch back, but I'm texting him during deadlifts, and I'm like, oh, how's Sunita doing? I hope she wins. And he's like, what the fuck are you talking about? And I was like, what do you mean? And then he just left it there because he knows I don't like to know, but I had no idea I was even like in the realm, which looking back, I'm like, how stupid can you be? But I had no clue.
And when you found out, how did you find out that you were the world champion?
Bryce looked at me like we were in the back watching on the screen. We watched Sunita's last deadlift. We're all screaming for her. And then we watched Natalie's last deadlift. We're all screaming for her. And then Bryce looks at me and he's like, good job, champ. And I was like, oh, thanks. Like, whatever, today's done. And he's like, no, like, you're the champ. And I was like, what do you mean? And he's like, you just won. And I just like started crying. Like, I had no idea. Like, no idea.
Started crying when you found out?
Yeah. Because it like
Wh-
caught me so off guard. And like when I think back again, it's like obviously I could have put it together, but I didn't allow myself because when I feel under that kind of pressure, that's when I start making mistakes. And my coaching staff did such a good job of not letting me feel a single ounce of that stress. So I just played along, did what I was there to do, and just stayed clueless.
when you found out that you just won in the most stacked 84 plus class of all time, you broke the world record, and you found out all those details. Now that you look back, how does it feel knowing, okay, I'm the champ, but I'm the champ now? Like legitimately you won twice, but now you won in the most stacked 84 plus we'd ever seen. You broke the world record. So with all due respect to like Bonica's resume is still the best resume we'd ever seen, 84 plus. She's still the GOAT. No taking anything away from her like that. However, she bombed out. Sure. But even if she had not bombed out, she has never registered that total before. So even then, it kind of erases any kind of talk of, well, if Bonica didn't bomb out, well, she's never proven to have done that total before. Nobody at the World Championships have ever won that with that total. That really does help erase a lot of questions. Like numbers are difficult to combat. That's statistics, right? When you can pull up stats and you see all this, and it's starting to, this is different than 2021 now. What are the feelings when you look at it now in terms of the satisfaction of knowing this is what you've accomplished?
I think it took me a really long time to process. The day of, nothing felt real. The end of the trip, nothing felt real. Coming home, it was just like, okay, Worlds is done. Like, check that off the list. Sat with it for a couple of weeks, and I'm starting to feel pretty good about it. Like, it's something I struggle with is feeling pride in my accomplishments, and it's something that I've been working on for a really long time. My first like thing that I was able to feel proud about was at Canadian Nationals, winning best lifter there. So this has been, you know, a tough pill to swallow. Like, yeah, you did this, you earned this, you deserve this, and you worked for this. So it's starting to feel real now, and it's a pretty cool feeling, honestly.
Especially like everybody watched what happened and all the accolades and everything everybody's saying about that performance as well. Um, yeah, it was exactly what we needed when we needed it. When you did what you did on Eurosport with everyone watching. I mean, I can tell you right now, the Eurosport people were super happy when that happened. They're like, "Whoa!" It's like, yes, that's the perfect send off that we could have had. If people were to tune in and be like, "What is this all about?" Is weightlifting entertaining? Like we're just watching people max out. That had it all in terms of the seesaw back and forth. One person's in a lead, another person's coming back right down to the final deadlift. If she gets this, she wins. She misses, Brittany wins. Third in nomination, so it's an upset win. And then Bonica, the favorite, even the controversy of her bombing out, like all of it is all just makes it so many different storylines in terms of sports. It was everything you could ask for in terms of dramatics. And when you watch that back, when you watch the whole thing back yourself, were you like, holy smokes, I can't believe all this was happening around me at the same time?
Yeah, honestly, it was baffling. Like I watching through, I'm like, oh, I had no idea this happened or that happened or whatever. Like I knew, a couple of us were taking records for a ride. Some of us were taking records as temps. Others of us were having good days. Some of us were having bad days, and it's hard to keep track of all that while you're just trying to lift. But going back and watching it was super cool.
And now you're going to Sheffield.
Now I'm going to Sheffield.
What I'm assuming you watched Sheffield or when it rolled around. Did you see it?
I went to Sheffield.
Well, wait. Okay. So what was your impression of Sheffield, first off? And coming into this, did you allow yourself to even think about going to Sheffield coming into Worlds like, oh my God, I could be going to Sheffield? Or are you just like, I'm not going to think about that?
The thought crossed my mind is maybe I could get a wild card spot. Like that was the extent of that, and just let it go, because again, like it's not solely based on my performance, it's based on the performances of everybody else in the IPF as well. So that's as much as I let that thought live. But yeah, I went to Sheffield this year with SCD Canada, and it was incredible. It was actually mind blowing. Like I didn't know what to expect, but it was so much more than I ever could have expected. It was the coolest thing I think I've ever seen, and I think it's really going to help in the sport of powerlifting.
And how do you feel now knowing that you know everything that Sheffield is, knowing like, oh my God, I'm going to be going?
A little bit intimidated, because when I lift at, like, say at Worlds, like I don't hear or see anything, but the crowd at Sheffield was so loud. I don't know how I'm gonna pretend it's not there, because it was literally shaking the whole arena. So I'm like, oh, that'll be an interesting, but it's a hurdle we're gonna have to cross when we get there, because nothing can really replicate it aside from being there.
Is that going to be your next competition in Sheffield?
Yeah, Sheffield will be my next competition.
And if you can compete against one person, who do you want to face at Sheffield?
Oh, I want Sunita to come. I think it would be so fun to be there pushing each other. I think she has a really good shot at getting a ticket there. So with her, because she broke a world record total too, and I know that's a huge part of it. So I would love for her to be there.
You got an opportunity to run it back.
Yeah.
We'll run it back. Who knows? And I don't know how things are going to shake up. Obviously, there's only so many slots. There's a possibility they bring Sonita and Bonica, but then that means obviously you're using up a wild card you could use somewhere else, and it's the toughest of tough decisions because there's it's every single weight class. There's
Yeah.
you could stack up on the 84 pluses and try to replicate the magic that happened at Worlds, but it's going to be at the cost of a different showdown somewhere. It's
Yep.
the hardest of decisions to make. I don't
Yeah.
know. It's
Honestly, I would hate to be in their shoes. Definitely a tough
what
decision. But yeah, I think I could pick people from any weight class that I would love to see there. But for selfish reasons, I would love Sunita to be there just because I think it'd be really fun and I'd love to compete with her again.
I mean, you guys made magic together at Worlds. So I mean, if you're gonna have Sheffield, I mean, worst case scenario, you go by yourself. But would that be different for you if you just went and you're competing on your own? A, there's no performance anxiety in terms of competition being there. But on the flip side, does are you the type of lifter because you're so focused just on yourself on the day of? Do you think you would perform the same whether someone's there or not? Or even if you're not paying attention to what they do, the fact you know they're there puts enough pressure to rise up. How do you feel about that?
I think I would perform pretty much the same. Honestly, it's not really the pressure of having a competitor there. I think it's more a comfort thing that I have a familiar face and a friend that I would be there lifting with rather than like, oh, the pressure of us battling it out. I would be like, oh, familiar face, this is comfortable. We're okay.
Really? So that's like totally opposite that I would expect is like your competitor, Sonita, makes you more comfortable and at ease than if she's there like a friend.
Yeah. Like I don't know.
Mhm.
I don't function the way that a lot of other lifters do. And I know like, yeah, having competition there drives you, but what I'm able to hit is what I'm able to hit. And I don't think it's directly impacted whether or not I have a direct competitor there or not. Especially with Sheffield, like the scoring system's so different that I don't think it matters who is there and who's not.
Hmm. What if Sonita, what if your competition is the opposite and they're like antagonistic? Does that impact you negatively or are you able just to block it out and be like, it doesn't?
Yeah, I just block it out, focus on, like if it were only me and somebody that hated me, that's fine. I'll stick in my own lane. But that hasn't really been the case, at least to my face. So I don't know how would just stay in my lane, stay quiet, head down, do what you're there to do. But it's definitely a lot more fun when can focus on the friendships that are made on these world championships as well.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, Sheffield's going to be absolutely bonkers. It's going to be crazy. I'm glad you're there. And in terms of like, if they do bring Sonita, what that'll do for the 84 plus class, what you guys did at Worlds for the 84 plus class, this is the best quality we've seen and standard we've seen for that class like ever. It's popularizing it. People are like, oh my God, I can't wait to see another one. Do you feel that? Do you feel like, man, we did something special and we're doing something special for the weight class in and of itself, not just for yourself, not just for Canada, but for that weight class?
I think so, and I think it's opening a lot of doors for women who had previously counted themselves out because of being in a larger body. I think a lot of people are seeing there is potential and it is worthwhile. And, like obviously there's going to be negativity, but it's worth pursuing because there's so much more positivity than there's negativity around it. So I've gotten a lot of messages from people that are like, oh, like it's really inspiring to see like people that look like me or, like have similar sized body to me, like achieving these things. And it's helping me to keep going. And I think that's a really cool message to hear.
Especially what you guys are achieving is freaking incredible. Like the numbers you guys are putting up is insane. It's we've never seen anything like it. Do you think 700 is going to fall for you when you show up at Sheffield? Are you focused around that kind, like those kind of goals? I mean, it's right there. It's not very far. It's 6.5 kilos away.
Yeah, I'm not a super cocky person, as you know, but I would say 700 is an attainable goal for me, especially like it's going to be a long prep and I'm really excited to build because it's kind of been one competition after the next. It's been, nationals, worlds, nationals, worlds, nationals, worlds, back to back to back. And then I threw a Commonwealth in there and it's just been nonstop competing. So I think it'll be nice to actually do a building block. But yeah, I think 700 will fall for both Anita and I if she comes.
I mean, I don't even think it's caught. Like you put on 30 kilos in 3 months. To put on 6.5 kilos in 6 months is probably that should
Yeah.
be realistic. That
I
should
would hope
be within
so.
the.
But again, you never know what's going to happen on the day.
This is true. I mean, it is what it is. This is true. Do you think it'd be in terms of pressure wise? Do you think it's more pressure, less pressure when you're going to go in the champ, you're going to leave the champ? There's no titles at stake. Is this more for fun and experience? Like it's like a rock concert in there. It's more putting on a performance for people and having fun, or do you think nah, there'll be a level of pressure because if Sunita's there, you're going to try to win? You know, how do you view it?
I think there's still a lot of pressure around it, but I also could go to a local competition here in Ontario and feel immense amounts of pressure because at the end of the day, I compare myself to myself, not to everybody else. So what I'm doing is competing against me, and it's going to be there at any level of competition, local, international, it doesn't matter. It all feels pretty much the same to me.
Yeah. I mean, that's the truth. You have your own standards that you think you need to be lifting to. But
Yeah.
it's kind of like, no, I got to hit certain numbers and or else you'll feel certain ways about it. But things have obviously been going good with you and Bryce. Holy smokes.
Yeah, definitely been a good partnership so far.
How did you
I
so
told
what
Pete I told Pete I was gonna fire Bryce just to stir the pot before Sheffield, just to see how things would pan out.
I mean, please don't. You guys have how did that happen? You and Bryce.
So when I was looking for a coach many years ago, I wanted to list with Bryce, but he was coaching the top 84 plus at the time in Canada. And I didn't know if it would be a conflict of interest because, again, I was really new to the sport. So I didn't ask him. And then, I made really great progress with Kimberly Walford and loved training under her. It was a great time, but I came to a point where I was like, you know what, I want to try something different. Like I've never done RPE based training and I think it would be really cool. So I like hit Bryce up and I was like, hey, like, are you accepting clients? He's like, it depends. Is it you? And I was like, I mean, it could be. So we chatted about that at Canadian Nationals last year. And then I picked up with him after Worlds in 2022. So it's been 1 year with him now.
What is the big difference in training? Because everyone's going to be listening to this is going to be like, how it's such a drastic increase in strength. Um, what are some major changes you made that you saw? Was there like some variations? Was there volume? Was there amount of singles you did, or what was it that made this huge jump for you?
So I started training a fourth day of the week, which people used to be like, how are you only training 3 days a week? But I was making great progress and it was working for me. So it was fine. Started training 4 days a week. It took some adapting to and figuring out, but this style of training RP and not just numbers based because some days you show up and you feel terrible and those numbers aren't there. And I feel like I used to be always lifting at my top end or what felt like my top end, and it wasn't totally unusual for me to fail lifts in the gym. Whereas now, like we don't push that far. We've kind of accepted the fact that I'm not going to be the lifter that hits these huge numbers in training, and like we're not getting our King of the Lifts reposts on our weekly training sessions. It's just not the way I function. And we've leaned into that and really harnessed like my ability to lift heavy weights, but not the heaviest of heavy weights in training. And definitely volume changes. Like I hit a lot more volume than I used to. Yeah, I don't know. It's been a lot of different changes, and there was a big period of adaptation for me, but I think it's really working, and we haven't changed anything like the last couple preps because it has been working every single meet.
It's interesting when powerlifters who are strength athletes obviously lower the intensity and lower. So it it takes a great amount of faith to be like, this has got to work because am I working hard enough? Like the volume's there, but you're like, am I going to be strong? Like this is moving sub max, you know, you're talking like way sub max. If your max is 281, obviously, and you're doing 260, is the heaviest,
Hmm.
you are well underneath what your full capabilities are. So but everybody's a little bit different. You don't know until you do it. And then you can kind of see how you can add in a fourth day if you're operating underneath those conditions, and you can just rack in some more volume involved. Do you do like assistance work as well? Or are you mostly SBD?
No, I do accessories. Like I'm mostly like I have two primary squat days, a third like secondary, like an SSB day or something. I bench 4 days a week, but that is both comp bench and all sorts of accessories. Like we've been absolutely hammering my bench press for the last year, and my bench numbers have actually absolutely skyrocketed. Like I never thought I would see a day I medaled in bench, and here I am getting bronze at the most competitive 84 plus worlds ever. So we've been hammering that, and I deadlift 2 days a week now. Whereas before I was only deadlifting 1 day a week at the end of an SBD day, so I was always super fatigued. So I think that's made a huge difference for me too.
Lifting 2 days a week. See, this is where some people is one of them like a way lighter, more volume?
Yep, way lighter, not necessarily high volume. I can't do high volume deadlifts. Like it's just not something that agrees with my body. But yeah, one's definitely a lighter day, and then one's like a single at 7 or single at 8, and then the other one's like a triple at 6, triple at 7, something like that.
Oh, it's interesting. And what about squats? How did you get that squat to skyrocket like that?
Again, I think a lot of it was just trusting myself and believing that the strength was there. But I definitely have been pushing harder in my squat because I'm like, you know what? Like I hit this 260 at nationals and it looked like an opener. Like I'm obviously capable of more. So using like the hard data to convince my mind that you are capable and just pushing that a little bit further, pushing it a little bit further, and like slowly working up to 260. But like I said, 281 seemed like I just closed the meat card. I was like, this isn't right. This is the wrong card. But obviously Bryce knows what he's doing, so I sat with it for a while and just carried it forward. But yeah, I think the biggest part was just trusting myself, and you keep putting in the work, push harder, work harder, add a little bit of weight each week, and just trust the process.
How many days a week would you squat?
I squat 3 days a week, but one is like a very, very light accessory day.
No kidding. So there's 4 days a week, but you do 3 squat days, 2 dead days. So you get to work, you get after it. And how many days a week do you bench
Mm,
press?
4.
That's what I thought. How long are these training sessions?
Usually 90 minutes, 90 to 120 minutes, like less than 2 hours every time.
So you are moving at a quick pace. That's why you didn't fall off at Worlds. Like you're used to
Yeah,
getting all
I
your work
train
done.
quick and dirty, like get in, get it done. Like I have a very set schedule. Like I work later in the day, so it's always get up, have your breakfast, let it settle, get to training around 10:30. I try to get out of there by 12:30. Walk the dog, feed him lunch at 1 because he is very adamant about his lunchtime, and carry on with the rest of the day after that. But I want to be done everything I have to do by 1 o'clock. So yeah, you get in, get the work done.
And how is your family and friends now that did they watch that session? How was their reaction to you being a world champion?
So most of my family doesn't know what powerlifting is. They have no idea what I do. They just know that I lift things. My sister watched, and she's been really supportive the whole time, and she was super proud of me, which was nice. And then I have like my chosen family that obviously watched and supported me, and they think it's the coolest thing ever. But yeah, most of my family doesn't even know that powerlifting is a thing. So
This is crazy because this is like you've won 2 world titles now, and it's been years you've been doing this with everything you've done. Like it was, if they watched that session, they'd be like, "Oh my god, man, I'm gonna watch it from here on out."
yeah, I don't know. I think it'd be cool. Especially my dad, like he has no idea. Like people ask him, and he's like, "Oh yeah, she's into that weightlifting, bodybuilding shit." Like he doesn't know. If I asked him how many lifts do I do? He would have no idea, let alone what 3 lifts I do. Like, no idea.
It's nuts to me that like you're a world champion though. You would think they would get into it by now. Does it bother you that they don't?
No, I mean, my family's my family and they are how they are. And, I think
Right.
he would think it's cool. Like, I've definitely shown him some lifts sometimes, but yeah, I think he could get into it if he would give it a shot, but it doesn't bother me that he hasn't. He's got his own busy life going on, and I have enough support in the community. It's not like I'm missing out on that.
In terms of like if there's ever a session to sell them, the one that just happened, my God, man. How was the support from the
Honestly.
community? So, after this, how has been the reception from the community after you just won and did what you did?
uh, so it's been good for the most part. I've had like the whole Reddit thing happen again, which has been, fun to deal with. But yeah, primarily it's been exceptionally supportive, and again, just people from all around the world supporting me and, cheering me on and just reiterating how hard I've worked for this.
Is that whole Reddit situation, like people bullying on Reddit, is it easier to work with now that that you've dealt with it for years? In or because I remember the first time this happened, the community definitely rallied around you and was like
Yeah.
trying to protect you as a whole. Is it easier, but it's never going to be easy?
Yeah, it's been easier, which is sad, but there are a few things that have stung. Like, I don't know, I was put down to less than a human being. I was called a thing, because this thing doesn't deserve to be called a woman. So some things like that, they sting a little bit more than others, but it was definitely easier to handle. Like, I haven't had to talk about it publicly, but I've talked about it with my close friends and sought support through them and talked about it in therapy. So, like, working through it, but I mean, it gets easier, but it never fully stops sucking.
That's why you're strong on like fucking a lot of different levels. And there's going to be people that like are dealing with things when they see you handle this, it's going to be some inspiration from them as well. So like I'm glad you're able to handle this load because you're strong in a lot of different ways. I told you all this last time, but
Yeah.
yeah, if I could wave a fucking wand and fix one thing, that's one thing I would fix. However, you got the heart of a lion and we're all behind you anyways. That's for sure. I'm
Yeah.
proud as fuck of you. That's for sure. But
Yeah.
but anyways, yeah. So do you want to play the name game, kind lady? We got a couple names. I belt off a name. You say it could be one word, 2 words, a story, or whatever. Doesn't have to, it's usually just to start conversation.
We'll try it, but also I'm really terrible at remembering people's names. So if you say a name I'm supposed to know and I don't know it, I apologize in advance.
You should know all these ones. All right, we'll start with the low hanging fruit. How about Sonita Mulu?
Yeah, love her. She's a doll, and I really hope all the best for her in the future.
Um, Another competitor, Bonica Brown.
Tanika is the GOAT. She has accomplished so many things and has been a huge inspiration of mine for many years. And again, I wish her all the best. I wish things hadn't ended for her the way that they did this competition, but I think she'll be back for more, and I'm excited to see that.
Garrett Bentley.
Garrett has a piece of my heart. He's super sweet, and honestly, like, I'm so fortunate to have him in my corner.
Bryce Krawczyk.
A lot of respect for Bryce. It's been an interesting year, and he's dealt with a lot of both my physical and my mental things going on, and I appreciate the hell out of him. Happy he's in my corner as well.
How about USAPL star, but I believe she's coming over to the IPF, Alexis Jones.
Yeah, we've chatted a few times. She's super nice. I'm excited for her to come on over. I would love to add her into the mix of things. I think it's going to be a super cool couple of years, but yeah, I'm super excited to meet her and have the chance to compete alongside her.
Can you believe how stacked the 84 plus is going to be when Alexis comes over as well? You add her to you, Sonita, and Bonica, and you have you 4 killers as well as like Natalie from Australia, who's going to be deadlifting over 600 pounds. Like the
Jewel.
It's insane. It is absolutely insane what's going to be happening for you guys in 2024 from from Sheffield to Worlds to everything. It's do you think that Worlds is possible to have a podium all 700 kilos and up?
Yeah, I think next year it'll be the case because I mean so many of us are so close. I don't think it's gonna take much longer, especially with us pushing each other as hard as we are. I think this coming year, if not, it'll be the following year for sure.
How about Amanda Lawrence?
Utmost respect for her. Had the opportunity to train with her a couple of times leading into the competition, and she's always just been a gem. Respect the hell out of her. She's an awesome lifter. So
Fellow Canadian Jessica Bittner.
yeah, Jess is a sweetheart too. Never had any issues with her. Lifted with her as well leading into Worlds. Super sweet. I respect her really highly. She put on a hell of a battle this year too, and I got to watch it live, and it was so cool. So proud of her.
How about reigning world champion Jesus Oliveira?
Jesus is I've never talked to him deeply, but he wished me good luck on meet day. It was a little comforting. It was nice getting a smile out of him. He seemed super nice. Excited to lift with him at Sheffield.
Taylor Atwood.
I don't know much about Taylor, I'm not gonna lie, but I heard some crazy stuff happen to Worlds this year that led to some controversy with him. So not sure what else to say there.
Did you see a session?
Yeah.
What did you think of the whole battle? Like the Battle of 74s was fantastic.
Yeah.
What did you think about it? Was it like, do you think that was probably the best battle on the men's side, or what was your standout
I think
moments of Worlds from what you saw?
I honestly like I loved watching the 76 battle. It was so much fun. Um I think that was probably my standout because it kind of let me stop thinking about my competition for a while and just be fully present. And I know all of the 76 lifters and who they are. And, I was sitting with Jewel Apathy's mom while Carlina was competing. So it's just fun chit chatting and, forgetting all the pressure for a little bit and just enjoying the time there. So I think that was my standout moment. But the 74 battle, I think, was really cool. And uh, yeah, I mean, it was awesome to watch. Probably, one of the highlights for the men's side for sure.
It's it's tough because Taylor had been winning for so many years, and you're used to somebody being on top, and then when they finally lose, it feels weird. It was always Taylor number one, and then all of a sudden, like Austin did what he did in USAPL. Now Callie in the IPF with the upset win. It's kind of weird. And there's shades of same thing what happened in 84 plus. Bonica's been winning for so long, this happens in sports. You don't win forever. This is
Mm-hmm.
eventually there's a turnover, but we'll see what happens because Taylor was dealing with some injuries. The squat call didn't go his way, but on the flip side, Callie looked like his last deadlift, he had more in him. But yeah, talk about a freaking sensational battle. It was
Yeah,
definitely
I
one of the
think
highlights.
honestly this year's Worlds, the battles were just off the chain. Like every weight class was so cool. And it was the same for Canadian nationals. Like I talked about it on an interview with SBD Canada. Everything's just getting so close and so stacked now on every level of competition. Like you don't know who's going to end up going to Worlds. And whereas before in Canada, it was pretty much a set group of men and women that would go every year. But now that's not the case at all.
Mm. Yeah, especially people are popping up in nations too, like all over the place. Like obviously in the last few years, France has risen up, but Italy's rising up. Like look at Carola Gara, what she put off in the 63s. I knew Carola was favored to win, but that total, like her breaking the 63 kilo total, like that's Leah Bavois total that she broke.
Yeah,
She broke it. That's
huge.
crazy. Not many people take Leah Bavois total.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty nuts. Do you watch powerlifting like a sports fan? Obviously, you went to Sheffield and watched, so you got to be in. But how much like what are the classes? Do you watch mostly the women's? Do you watch women's and men's? All the classes, or what are the ones that you pay attention to?
Honestly, I pay most attention to women. I will watch if I know somebody that's lifting. Like I'm always there to cheer them on, support them, watch them lift. I watch everything that happens in Canada. Most international things I'll try to watch if it's at a somewhat reasonable time. But yeah, I would consider myself a pretty big fan of powerlifting. It's an important part of my life, and I'm always there at local things, volunteering, refereeing. So I love watching, any level of powerlifting.
Have you actually visited France before?
Visited, yes, but it was before I was ever into powerlifting.
Okay, got you. Okay, because I came back from silent worker. I was just there on the weekend. I'm telling you, Britt, it's freaking crazy. If you can ever, you know what? If you got an opportunity to lift a silent worker, you should go. Even the thing is, it's pretty close after Worlds. I don't know about your turnaround in terms like physically, if you like doing that kind of thing. Certain people do, like in France, you've seen how they train. They go nutso. So they're used to like heavy. It's no big deal. Sounds like your training isn't, you don't actually stay sub max, so maybe that might be impact you, but it is insane how they deal with powerlifting. I mean, Penna they had a photo booth set up, and Penna was there for like 5 to 6 hours straight. He couldn't leave the photo booth because people just were coming around taking pictures with him. They love powerlifting in France. It's crazy how much they love powerlifting. To them, too, like a world champion to them is like meeting a rock star when they meet them. They react like that. Like they love it. And when people are lifting, it was like the crowd was like worlds. Only they're so boisterous. It's part of their culture. It's so passionate. The way they're like yelling and hooting and hollering and like it's crazy, Brit. If you got an opportunity to go to silent worker, I don't know how quickly would that 2 week turnaround be too much for you? What do you think?
I mean, I could do it. It wouldn't be the same performance I put on at Worlds, but yeah, I could do it. And you're right, that meet did look next level, and it was so cool just watching everybody there, watching Sunita pull a crazy deadlift PR like 2 weeks later. Like it blows my mind, but that meet looked next level. It was so cool to watch.
Did you see it too? You watched that one too?
Yeah, yeah.
Damn, you
Bits and
are.
pieces of it.
You really are a fan. Yeah, it was cool because Sonita was just chilling in the freaking crowd, and out of nowhere, Leah Bavwa again pulls the old, like she was like, I'm not competing. She was working all day, and then is like, all right, like just shows up. I see her name on the roster, like the lineup when I'm looking at the flights. Like obviously I'm commentating, and I'm like, that says Leah Bavwa, and I'm like, what? And then I'm like, I'll see if I see her in a singlet. And she's in a freaking singlet. And I'm like, holy shit, she's coming out. Just squats, takes bench off. Leah goes into the crowd, like, Sunita, I want you to fill in for me. And I'm like, well, only this happens in France. And Sunita's like,
Yeah.
I wasn't training. I just been chilling since Worlds. And she was just in the crowd chilling. And she's like, all right. So she came out and said Leah Bavla's name, and she's deadlifting. And she put on a hell of a show deadlifting. It was like she didn't, I don't know. It's the wildest. It's a hell of an experience. And it really is like whether you hit the big numbers, and who knows, maybe you do. Maybe you just like you and Bryce taper it off for 2 weeks, or you're just there for an experience. It's freaking wild. It is and if Sunita's there again, although you guys might get sick of seeing each other where you compete 3 times in a row in the first 6 months of the year, be like, maybe we have a break. But yeah, it's a hell of a show. It's a hell of a show. How about this one for a name too? Leah Bavla.
I have not had the opportunity to speak with Leah much ever, but she seems like a really passionate, really hard worker, and I take a lot of inspiration from her. She's overcome hurdles that I think a lot of people would have been too like overwhelmed with to overcome, and I really respect that from her.
Yeah, she's talked about another podcast before, in like Kingless podcast like years ago, but she's got autism, and the way it affects her, you don't it's like, I mean, you can't visibly see, you know, but internally how it affects her to be around the massive amount of crowds and everything socially,
Hmm.
it is an incredible toll on her. I mean, an incredible toll. She's talked about, previously she's dealt with, like, before she was actually, because you can't visually see it and you don't know until you're diagnosed. And she got diagnosed later in life. And until she knew what it was, she thought it was just her. She thought it was just like her family's like, what is wrong with you? Friends and family wouldn't understand. She wouldn't understand. So she was like in a dark place, thought about suicide, like I should just off myself. Like, how could someone actually be with me and around me when I'm so different? Like, things impact me that would never impact other people, not deal with it the same. And once she got diagnosed, everything changed. And then you start,
Yeah.
and people would be like, "Oh, why?" Because you could start researching, be like, "Well, how does this person handle it? How does that person handle it?" Because other people have it too. And now she realizes, like, when things flare up and she has these moments, where, can have a breakdown. She's been there before and she's brave enough to face it and be like, this, I know what this is and I've dealt with it. And she's gone through her life. She's still, it'll obviously never go away. This is a lifelong thing. But
Right.
yeah, for her to deal with that and be, I mean, she's got a massive following. She's got, like, she shows up at these events in France and it's like crazy how many people are all over her for pictures and stuff. And I don't know. I don't know how she deals with it, but she does. It's inspirational for sure. She's dealt her adversity as well. And she's
Yeah.
super open about it too, which helps, like, other people. But yeah. And what about, did you get an opportunity? I don't know if you're around for Natalie Richards, who won Best Lifter, won the 57 kilo class. She'll obviously be at Sheffield as well. Did you see that?
Yeah, I watched that performance. Absolutely next level. Huge props to her. Like, we all kind of knew she was coming, but she showed up and put
Yeah.
on something that that was just untouchable. So really incredible. Look forward to meeting her at Sheffield. Like, we didn't cross paths in Malta, but really looking forward to meeting her.
It'll be interesting to see how Sheffield unfolds with, if they bring Shad back or whatever ends up happening. Lifting by yourself is okay as well because you could chase those world records. She had to push
Mm-hmm.
that world record, but she pushed it with room to spare, it looked like. But for her to be her
Yeah.
first year at the World Championships, very first year, to deal with, like, the flight, time zone change, all of that, and Jad's there, who's a monster lifter herself. So she was under
Mm-hmm.
very high pressure, and to win and also win Best Lifter is like crazy. Talk about a first world's experience. She also was kind of like you. She was like, I didn't pay attention. I don't know what's going on. I'm just going in cruise control and put all my faith in my handling team and be like, just get me to the end. And she's not overly thinking about it. And there's, like, a lot to be said for that.
Yeah, I think it's funny because when you say like that's what she said, I'm like, yeah, that makes sense. But to other people, it doesn't make sense. Like, they want to know, like, hey, this pull is the world record, or this pull is for gold, or whatever. Like, people want to know that, but a lot of us
Mm.
don't want to know any of it.
Powerlifting is one of the most unique sports. I can't even think of too many sports like it, where you literally can play for 3 hours straight in the game, so to speak, and not have any idea where you are in terms of placing. And you could literally win and not know until, like, after the fact. Like, you literally could just do the sport of powerlifting all day and have no idea what's going on if you want to.
Yep, yep, you absolutely can, and that's 100% what I prefer. Like, excuse me. I know in the past they've told me, like, okay, if you hit this pull, like, it's for silver or whatever. So they've told me, but it doesn't make me feel any better. So they know now. Just don't tell me.
Yeah, it also means that your competitors can't impact you, and it alleviates that. Where it's like, whether you're trying to get in my head or not, it's up to me to allow it, because you can't actually, like in basketball, you can't, like, smack that ball out of my hands. It's not
Right.
it's not gonna happen. This ain't football. You're not gonna tackle me. This is not none of that. You have 60 seconds. I got 60 seconds. I can make everything right in my 60 seconds and then put the pressure on you and you do whatever you want to do. So it's a unique sport like that. I think that helps us gather a different talent pool of people and have a bigger scope of people that come to our sport, which makes it interesting. Different people with different backgrounds can show up. And you have like the super duper aggro types who come, and then you have the super laid back types who are, and we take them all, which is, I don't know, there's something nice about it. It's crazy to see
Yeah,
everybody
I
in the
think it's
warm up
super
room all
cool
together.
because we do all have crazy different backgrounds and we come from different walks of life and all sorts of different people and we all have different day jobs. Like I think it's really cool that something unites us, and it's honestly at the end of the day, like it's a pretty silly sport, but most sports are, but it's just so cool that this is what pulls us all together.
For sure, like you're right. Most sports are silly. If you think about like a guy hits a ball with a stick and runs around in a circle, and that's baseball.
Right.
But our sport, if you think about it, who's the strongest? Look at in terms of silliness of sports, if you think about throwing basketball through a hoop, like you throw a ball through a hoop, that's your sport. We're going to determine who's the strongest human beings in the world. That's been a question since ancient civilizations when they're like throwing rocks and doing their versions of the Highland Games or who can lift this, who can lift that. We're going to answer the age old question, who is the strongest person in the world? It actually is like less silly than most sports, I think, but I'm biased.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it makes sense, but there are many times I'm like, who the hell signed me up for this? Like, especially on a bad training day, I'm like, who signed me up for this? This is the stupidest thing ever. But it's just how I deal with getting through those rough days.
You think to yourself, like, do you ever think to yourself, on any given day, I'm the strongest woman alive? Do you ever talk to yourself like that? Because
Absolutely not.
I knew you didn't. I knew you
Not
did.
a
You know
chance.
how many
There's always more.
you think at some point you'll look back and be like, holy shit, on any given day of my career, I could have been the strongest woman alive.
I mean, strength is relative. No, I honestly like I know that there are so many people who aren't as fortunate to be a lot of the opportunity to compete in powerlifting, people that can't afford it, people that don't have access that could easily be stronger than me. So I don't consider myself like the strongest 84 plus woman because there's no way to know that that's true. So there's always someone out there. There's always something coming. So no, it's not the way that my mind works.
How about okay, first off, you're humble as hell, but that's that's super humble considering what you just accomplished. Here's the last name. It might be the toughest. Brittany Schlater.
That's not fair. Honestly, I'm really, really proud of myself, which is it's hard for me to say. It's something I've always struggled with, but I feel like I'm in the best place that I have been mentally and physically for a really long time, and I'm proud of my accomplishment and the fact that I'm able to take that and award it to just myself rather than being like, oh, it was my coach, oh, it was my game day staff. Like I know all of this plays into it, but at the end of the day, I was the one showing up and putting in the work. And that means a lot to me that I did something for myself, saw it through the good days, the bad days, and ended up, having a damn good day because of it.
I mean, sure, the coach game day staff help, but holy smokes, man. In terms of our sport, you really got to do it. You like in terms of strategy, this isn't like an MMA fight where there's a big fight plan rolled out or whatever. For sure, game day staff impacts, but you have to physically perform and execute like crazy. So for sure, you deserve a huge amount of credit. What would if you could talk to like the younger Brittany? What would you tell her? This Brittany now, after everything you've done, everything you've accomplished.
I think I would urge her to trust herself earlier in the process. Start working on the mental aspect of powerlifting and therapy a lot sooner because it always seems silly to me because it's just a hobby at the end of the day, but it's a hobby that consumes the majority of my life. And I think I'm right to take it seriously and work on it in therapy and not see that as a weird thing where I did for a really long time. So I never actually talked to a therapist about anything powerlifting related until about a year ago. And that's when I really started hammering down and like found out that people do actually like speak to sports psychologists about these things and like work on these things and that it wasn't weird. So I think I would urge her to start working on that a bit sooner. Yeah, and then just building the sense of trust with myself and, you know, knowing my limits, knowing when to call it. And I guess third would be to accept the fact that I'm not going to be the lifter that's lifting, you know, PRs in the gym. It's just not who I am as an athlete. And that's okay because I've trusted the process for year after year after year, and it pays off every time.
Powerlift. How much has powerlifting impacted your life? I got to think a lot.
Yeah, so it kind of came to me in a really good time. Like when I first started powerlifting, I had a really, really negative relationship with powerlifting, and it felt like I had put all of my eggs in one basket. And if I had a bad powerlifting day, it was a bad day of life. So I really had to mend that relationship with powerlifting and myself. But ever since I did that, it's been a portal to self confidence and making a better relationship with myself, appreciating my body for what it does for me and what it can accomplish. Just sense of self worth has increased a lot, and it's helped with my confidence. Like I used to be really, really shy, and now I can talk to people no problem because I've had to so many times through powerlifting. So I think it's helped pretty much every aspect of my life.
I I was the first time I met you like years ago. You were in Guelph, and you came to the same gym I was in. This is years ago,
Yeah,
Britt.
that
This
would
is
have been like
long.
2017, maybe.
Oh my, yeah. It was
Because it was right
so.
after I started lifting.
Yeah, you were like, "This is baby Britt." Wait, but we
Yeah.
had no idea. We had no idea, Britt. I totally forgot that. That's like the first time around when I met
Yeah, just a random gym. I had no idea who you were. You had no
you. Yeah,
idea
we
who
did.
I was, really.
Wow, have things changed since then? Having this conversation, huh?
Yeah.
2017, 6 years later,
Yeah,
we
it's
had
been a
no
ride,
idea.
that's for sure.
It's been a freaking ride, my friend. And yeah, it's funny you hadn't talked to your therapist. Well, you still there?
Yeah,
Okay. In the view, you dropped out. Let me see why that. As long
oh,
as you can still hear me.
yeah, I can still hear you.
Okay. Yeah, it's funny that you didn't think to tell your therapist about powerlifting because you didn't think about it impacting your life, but it really is like because of powerlifting, you have flown all over the world, been on international television, met so many people. Like I I myself can't imagine what my life would be like if I'd never experienced powerlifting. I'm sure whatever. I would have found something else cool. But what powerlifting has done and how it's changed, it's crazy. The people that we've met, it's I don't know. If all of this ride never happened, holy freaking smokes, man. I don't know. The amount of personal growth that I have gone through due to powerlifting in the places
Yeah,
I
I
visited.
just had this conversation yesterday or the day before with one of my friends because I moved to London, which is London, Ontario, which is where I found powerlifting. But we were going to move to Waterloo. And I'm like, do you think if we had moved to Waterloo, I ever would have found powerlifting? And like, it's crazy to think about like oh,
Can you
sorry.
imagine? You're back. Okay. Can you imagine
Okay.
though, never experiencing any of this? We fly around the world. We all the people we meet, all the pressure performances and whatnot, but all that's pressure because it means something. You're like representing your nation at the world stage. everything you've done, like if you missed all of that, holy freaking smokes, you know? And even like even the bad sculpts character and like the good that like the redeeming qualities you see in people and like it's and hearing all the stories you hear and I don't know, man. It's been such a freaking wild. It's a craziest. At some point, you're gonna look back and be like, I can't believe I did all that.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I don't like to think about the end of my powerlifting career, but whenever that day comes, I think I will be able to look back and be like, holy smokes, like that was a wild ride.
The wildest of rides. Even if it ended tomorrow, you've already done like a crazy, like I'll have a bunch accomplished. But the good thing for you, some of the biggest is yet to come. Sheffield is about to happen for you, which is going to be a
Yeah.
crazy experience. And then Worlds next year is going to be like obviously I don't know how the qualification is going to work with Canada, but so and I don't want to look, I don't know who the 84 plus is coming through Canada. So let's just say if you make the world team, all right, with all due respect to all the other 84 pluses in Canada, if someone's listening, like, hey
Yeah.
man, don't count me out. But Worlds next year is going to be is going to be just absolutely bonkers all over again. With
Especially as a World Games qualifier now.
oh yeah.
Don't
Yeah, I
forget that
forgot
minor
about
detail.
yeah, that's a big, 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 big one. And talk about an experience World Games could be if you show up at
Yeah.
that. How do you know how the qualification works? What you have to do at Worlds?
So I know for equipped, I believe it was just podium spot, but I don't know now what it's going to be for Raw. I just read that it was that Worlds was the qualifier. Worlds 2024 is the qualifier for World Games, so I'm not 100% sure.
I'd have to look into that myself. Um, Podium spot, huh? Like in your class, even that's going to be crazy because Bonica, you,
Yeah, it's going
Sunita,
to be
and
ridiculous.
Alexis, like that's freaking even podium spots tough. But whatever, you're right up in now. Now you're right up in the mix, and next year's going to feel different than this year because this year all of that clashing hype between Sonita and Bonica, cool. But this next year, everyone like you're the champ. You're the returning champ. So it'll be a little bit different, but you're used to putting on your blinders. You know what you got to do.
Yep.
So you'll be all right.
Yep. Show up, hit your lifts. That's all you can do.
27 white lights, kid. You don't get much better than that. Right?
Yep.
Listen, you do 27 white lights, it's going to be pretty tough to beat you. You do 27 white lights, if somebody does better, you hit the if somebody can beat your 27 white lights, like you were saying, and you're like, if I just focus on myself, hats off to you. Hats off to you. I did the best I could. It is a good way of just like if you just focus on yourself and take the pressure off of and don't keep your blinders on.
Well, honestly, like after my last poll, I thought I got third place and I was so happy with the way I had performed. Like I was so proud of, everything I had hit. Like super excited to be walking away with some records. Like I was so focused on myself. It didn't matter what place I was in because in my mind I was in third, which is like, how the hell did you think you were in third? Okay, whatever. I got bronze across the board. So I was like, bronze across the board equals bronze in total. But I was like super stoked with my performance and really happy with the day, even when I thought I was in third.
There you have it. Well, listen, thank you for coming on the podcast and telling your story. Much appreciated. And I'm going to see you in Sheffield. Maybe I see you sooner than that. Who knows? We're both in the same type of region. I don't know if
Yeah.
I don't pop up on a lot of local competitions, but you never know. Life is funny. But we'll keep in contact. You did us all proud. And Sheffield is going to be absolutely bonkers.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, Ryan.
You bet. Good luck with all training. We'll keep in touch. And anybody listening, please do subscribe. Give us high ratings as per usual. And until next time, 6-pack Lapadat, 6 up, and we are out.